All right, here we go, people. We are going to talk about plastic as pollution, what we use it for, and all that. So, first of all, what is plastic? Well, it's a solid substance. We know what it is. It's usually made from petroleum, from oil. Okay, when oil is refined, the parts that can be used as fuels are separated out, and parts that are used as lubricants and other things are separated out. And plastic is kind of made from the leftovers of the leftovers. Okay, stuff that parts of the petroleum that really couldn't be used for much of anything else gets used to make plastic. But since it's made from petroleum, that means that it is non-renewable. Okay? Now, because it's made from leftovers of leftovers, it is very cheap compared to the materials that would have been used for these sorts of things in the past. In the past, we would have made all this stuff out of wood or metals or glass. Okay, think of the things that are made out of plastic that are within sight of you right now. Okay, and with the exception of the computer or phone that you're watching this video on, those things that you see around you, if they even existed 100 years ago, they almost certainly would have been made of one of these things: wood, metal, or glass. Okay, not plastic. Now, plastic is durable. It's strong. It doesn't decompose. Okay, which makes it useful. Okay, it doesn't dissolve in water, so we can put beverages in it. Okay, it's not easily destroyed by chemicals, by many chemicals, so we can store things like bleach in it. Okay, or other cleaning solvents, Drano and everything is not dissolved by plastic because it's durable. Okay, which makes it very useful as a material for us. And so it's very widely used in just about everything. Okay, it's cheap, it's easily available, it's durable, it's strong, it's a great material for what we use it for, and this makes it widely used. But the problem is exactly what makes it so useful. It's widely used, so there's a ton of it, and it doesn't decompose. It stays in the environment. This is an interesting thing to think of. We've been using plastic for, I mean, in some form or another, probably about 100 years, really within the last 50 or 60 years or so, it's really taken off. But think about this: almost all of the plastic that has ever been made throughout history still exists somewhere. A plastic bag that was made 40 years ago, okay? A plastic bag that was used to put groceries in, that then your parents had when they were your age. That plastic bag, the plastic in it still exists. I mean, the bag may have been shredded up and ground to bits decades ago, but the plastic itself still exists somewhere. Now, plastic is not toxic usually because it doesn't break down. If you eat a piece of plastic, it's not going to like dissolve in your stomach and turn into some poison. It just will stay in a chunk in your stomach. But that doesn't mean that it's safe. Okay, I mean, you see this picture here. This is an old uh, pack of six pack rings. Okay, that, well, you see what happened. I mean, when this turtle was much smaller, it must have, it swam through this or something. It got stuck. The plastic got stuck, and then as the turtle grew, well, the rings didn't. Okay, and so the turtle was permanently deformed. Even I assume that whoever took this picture, then I hope that they removed the plastic then. But the shell isn't going to grow back. Now, as it does very slowly degrade over centuries, it can release dangerous chemicals. Okay, but the bigger thing is animals getting tangled in it, and the fact that it can easily be mistaken for food by animals. Here's another interesting factoid, okay? And this is true at current rates. If we continue to use plastic at the same rate that we're using it right now, there will be more plastic than fish by weight in the oceans by the year 2050. Okay. In 2050, when I sincerely hope most of you will still be alive, okay, in the year 2050, if you could weigh all the fish in the ocean, all the trillions of tons of fish in the ocean then, and you could weigh all of the chunks of plastic in the ocean, the plastic would weigh more. There will be more plastic than fish in the ocean worldwide. Now, when we talk about animals eating plastic, most animals cannot distinguish between plastic and food. Okay, when animals are hunting, okay, so this seabird that eats fish and clams and things, they don't have time to like stare at the food for a couple minutes and figure out, is it food, is it plastic, is it what they just, it's like if you've ever been hunting, you gotta be pretty quick. So it just grabs. Okay. Floating bags, like a floating Ziploc bag in the ocean, looks a lot like a jellyfish to things like sea turtles that eat jellyfish. These bright pieces of plastic, like this bottle cap, these broken bits here, they look a lot like fish or like snails or clams to a bird. Okay. So they can just be eaten directly, or they can be eaten and then passed up the food chain. Maybe a fish, fish aren't the brightest animals on the planet. They can eat plastic, and then the bird eats the fish, and now that plastic is in the bird. The plastic cannot be digested. Just like it doesn't break down, it doesn't decompose, it doesn't biodegrade. Well, it doesn't break down in the bird or fish or mammal's stomach either. So it stays lodged inside there. Now, this image shows a young albatross chick. Okay, so this is a baby bird. It is not old enough to fly, or was not old enough to fly itself. You can see it still has kind of fluffy, downy feathers, not real flight feathers. And I mean, so this is the particularly tragic part. All of the plastic in this bird's stomach, which is what killed it. I mean, so much plastic in its stomach. All the plastic in its stomach was brought to it by its parents. The parents picked up these bright colored pieces of plastic thinking that they were particularly healthy, nourishing, juicy morsels of food for their baby. They brought the food back, they brought the plastic back thinking it was food. And you can see how much this baby bird ate, so much so that it died. Okay. There have been studies done on the seabirds on Midway Atoll, which is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And these were on living seabirds, not birds that were killed, so birds that are living. The average seabird on Midway Atoll, the middle of the Pacific Ocean, hundreds of miles away from any inhabited area. Okay. The average seabird has 5% of its body weight in plastic stuck in its stomach. So even hundreds of miles away from where people are using plastic, this stuff is still getting there in such amounts that birds have 5% of their body weight on average, so some significantly more. And if that doesn't seem like that much, think of what 5% of your body weight is. And then imagine that you were carrying around that much plastic in your stomach at all times. If you weigh 150 pounds, for example, 5% of 150 pounds is 7.5 pounds. Imagine if you, for the rest of your life, were carrying around 7.5 pounds of chunks of plastic in your stomach. Not just 7.5 pounds of weight, 7.5 pounds in your stomach where your food has to go. You can imagine that would cause some problems, as it did for this bird. Well, so how does it get there? Well, I mean, it could be just thrown away, littered, dropped, blown away. And from there, it's carried into waterways. Okay. Now, it might seem far-fetched that plastic that we use here in northern Indiana could eventually make its way into the ocean. But pretty much all water eventually makes its way into the ocean. And if you drop a plastic bag or a bit of plastic blows away or something, well, it could make its way ultimately into a small stream, a drainage ditch or something, and from there into a river, from there into a lake, into another river, and another, until ultimately it is in the ocean. Pretty much all water goes to the ocean, and anything in that water, including floating plastic, gets to the ocean. The ocean currents carry it into these massive garbage patches, okay, that stretch for miles and miles and miles in the ocean. So, what can we do? Well, use less plastic. That's the number one thing. Use less plastic. Don't use things we don't need. Okay. If you go to McDonald's and you got your fountain drink and you're going to eat your food there, well, you don't actually really need a lid and a straw and everything, do you? I mean, sure, if you're in your car, you do, but you're just going to sit at the table and eat it? No, you don't need that. Leave it. Okay. Use reusable materials like glass bottles and jars, water bottles. There are tempered glass water bottles, or the plastic water bottles that are intended to be reused, not the disposable bottled water. Okay, cloth bags. Not only do things like this do reusable materials, not only are they better for the environment because you're not throwing stuff away, but they can save you money, right? My grocery store has a policy where if you come in there with a reusable bag, they sell them for I think 99 cents. If you have a reusable bag with you, for every reusable bag they knock 5 cents off your purchase. Now 5 cents, that's not very much, but okay, you've got 5 bags, say, and you go grocery shopping every week or two, that does start to add up. We're not talking about making tons of money here, but in the long run, if a bag costs you 99 cents, but every single time you use it, it saves you 5 cents, well, if you use it 20 times, it has saved you money in the long run. All right. Generally, it's better to use compostable materials and then actually compost them. Biodegradable materials like paper. But, I mean, the world that we live in, it is unavoidable that we'll use some plastic. Okay, it's how the world is. So, we need to recycle the plastic that we do use. If there's no recycling in a community, we could push to establish a recycling center and then use the recycling options that exist. Now, one thing that's not commonly known is that just putting something into a recycling bin does not ensure that it actually will be recycled. Okay? If a bottle or a bag or a box or something if it has a bunch of food in it still, it's probably not going to be recycled. The person at the recycling center who's sorting this is going to look at it and be, well, I'm not going to wash that out, and they just throw it away. Okay? It has to be clean. And in a lot of places, recycled goods need to be sorted, where paper goes in one bin, glass goes in another, plastic goes in another, metal goes in another, with no non-recyclable materials mixed in. Again, like food or anything else that cannot be recycled. Okay. So, recycling is great, but it turns out that it's kind of complicated and it doesn't work as well as we wish that it did. So the best solution to this issue of plastic getting into the environment is just use less of it. Use different things as much as possible. All right, there you go. Have a good one.